Cook some zero carb fried chicken. Talk about campus communism. Let me show you what we got to work with to start. We got about a pound of chicken tenders in the bag. We got some chicharrones. This is what we're going to use for the breading. Inside a Ziploc bag. We'll crunch that up in a little bit. Got some egg in a bowl, in a mixing bowl. Got some beef tallow. We're also going to be mixing this beef tallow with other animal fat we've accumulated over the last few days. Got some garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper, salt, and for the sauce, we got a little bit of water, a little bit of mustard, a little bit of honey. We're gonna make some honey mustard. All right, let me turn this around and we'll see how we can do to post this up. Girlfriend's napping, don't wanna wake her up for this massively important dissemination. So let's see what we can do ourselves. Huh. Okay. Let's see if that works. Probably gonna fall. Fine. Okay, so we have our chicharrones in a bag. What we're gonna do is we're gonna wrap these chicharrones in a towel. Okay. As we wrap these chicharrones in a towel, what we're going to do, make sure it's fully wrapped. You can either hit this with a mallet, or I prefer to step on it. So I'm just gonna crunch these. You can hear me crunching them. One thing, as you crunch them, you're gonna be generating pockets of air, so you gotta continue to open the bag, push the air out, otherwise it's just gonna pop and you're never gonna be able to actually continue to crunch it. So, all right, so we're gonna rewrap it. Continue to crunch that. As we crunch that, we're going to want to mix a little bit of salt into a mixing bowl. Oops. I may have completely broken this. Interesting. What happened to the other piece? We'll see. Hope you guys can still hear me. Let me know if you can hear me. I think you can. Okay, we're gonna have to figure out a better way to configure the this. Okay, you know what? We're just gonna put it at eye level. Put it at eye level. Okay, let you guys see everything. Okay, so we're gonna put a little bit of salt in the mix. Let me know if you guys have any troubles hearing me. Had a little camera mishap earlier as I'm doing self-filming today. Boop. Give me 1 second. Okay. All right, should be good. Okay, so I am continuing to crunch the chicharrones. I'm going to put a little bit of salt in. The bowl. And put a little bit of garlic powder in the bowl too, maybe a tablespoon and a half. Put some onion powder in the bowl. And then we're gonna put some black pepper in the bowl. All right, so you see we got some good stuff in there. All right. And of course, we're going to be discussing campus communism. Okay, I'm stirring tongs. Okay. I want to put a little bit more salt in here than what I did. Did I just break the salt? Maybe I did. That's a lot of salt. Okay. All right. Sounds like we are almost done crunching up the chicharrones. I'm stomping them like I'm a French dude stomping grapes. Almost at the bottom, not quite at the bottom, but I will show you what we got working. Okay, I think we are done. We are done crunching. Okay, cool. I'm going to take a little bit of salt out of here because I over poured the salt, but that's okay. We're gonna hold this salt off to the side. Probably a little bit more than that. It's a very healthy salt pour. Okay, I'm gonna hold that salt off to the side. That's gonna be in bucket number 2. Okay, so now that we have our mixing materials, actually, I'm gonna go ahead and crunch those even more. Okay, so, all right, now we're gonna start putting these in the bowl. So you guys see the mixing bowl right here. Got some salt, garlic powder, onion powder, pepper, and chicharrones for the breading. Okay. All right. Okay, that's gonna be enough for bucket number 1 or bowl number 1. While we start dipping the breading in, we are going to continue to crunch these up for bowl number 2. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Oops. We're going to take actually we gotta mix up the breading with the salt and the pepper at the bottom. Make sure it gets evenly distributed, okay? Okay, that's even. All right, now what we're gonna do, we're gonna start taking the chicken, start getting the chicken dipped. So we got 3 pieces in there. Sounds like that's about fair. Okay. We will let the egg drip off before we put it in, okay? Now that the egg is dripped off, we're going to do our best to cover the strip with a healthy amount of chicharrones breading. Okay, once we have done this sufficiently, we're gonna, I like to flip it a little bit, see if we can get a little bit more coverage in there. Okay, once the coverage is good, we're gonna set this to the side, and that will be grilled or fried shortly. Okay, so we're going to put more chicken into the mixing bowl. So we got a couple of these covered in trusted egg. Put that in. Try to mix this around. All right, so the topic for today is campus communism. Campus communism is something that's been going on since the 60s, depending on who you ask. According to Peter Thiel, it was alive and well in the 80s, that a lot of people on college campuses seem to be wanting to dismantle Western hegemony. If you actually listen to Peter Thiel, I would recommend listening to Peter Thiel's Diversity Myth speech. It was a book that he wrote with, co-wrote with David Sachs. I think they both went to Stanford at the same time. But the diversity myth was ahead of its time. It was talking about how all this diversity stuff was actually just cover for hating Western culture, and you know, it was really thinly veiled hatred for, you know, all that is seen as worthwhile in the West. And so these movements have been around obviously since the 60s at minimum, but more obviously since the 80s. I think Peter Thiel talks about a Stanford march where you know, they're talking about diversity, and the chant is "Hey, hey, ho, ho, Western culture's got to go." And so, you know, it makes it very clear that they're not actually interested in, you know, more representation for more people. They're actually just interested in toppling the whole system. And that's becoming increasingly obvious to those who, well, hopefully to everybody, but you know, a lot of people haven't been plugged into Twitter. They don't know how a lot of these communication channels actually work, so they didn't realize how bad everything was when things were going down. But you know, hopefully with Elon Musk taking over Twitter, now X, it's become a little bit more obvious for those with a pulse and half a brain who aren't, you know, still living under a rock, or, you know, listening to NPR or watching CNN, what the agenda for all these folks is. And so, you know, the reason they don't like Israel isn't because Israel's a settler colony. There's a lot of settlers, you know, Mexicans are settlers of Native Americans. So, you know, AOC is funny. AOC is named after the biggest settler of the 16th century, Hernan Cortez. And so it's no secret that these settlers are, you know, they're kin. Their great-great-grandchildren aren't just the oppressed, they're the grandchildren of the oppressors. And so everybody is a settler. Everybody, you know, nobody's staying on land that was indigenous to their people from 25,000 years ago. You know, during the agrarian revolution, a lot of wars were fought. The territory was quite valuable. And so, you know, if you didn't have access to land during the agrarian revolution, you know, the people who did have access to land fought wars for other people's land. And so the agrarian revolution was one of the biggest wealth transfers in human history, as people would build armies and feed the armies with the food that could be yielded from conquered lands. And the bigger the army, the more food they could yield, the more lands they could conquer. And so I really believe that was sort of the dawn of civilization as we know it. And, you know, so the reality is, you know, nobody's just this like innocent, no tribe is just innocently minding their own business, trying to get food. You know, all tribes derive from either, you know, continual foragers, where they're constantly moving and looking for food, or, you know, if they're big enough, obviously they had to take out other people to get the land that they got. And so, you know, a lot of this false neo-communism, and pardon me, I have a little bit more chicharrones that I would like to throw into the mix. All right, now that we have that, we're gonna add a little bit of salt. We're gonna add a little bit more garlic powder. Then we're gonna add about a little bit more of that, and then we're gonna add a little bit more onion powder. And so, okay, obviously we know that the whole ideology of the people who hate the West is a little bit upside down. But the question is, okay, so why have they latched on to Israel among any other country? And, you know, part of it's because Jews control a lot of things. They have money, they're wealthy. And so communists don't like rich people. Communists think all wealth is stolen. And so if you think that all wealth is stolen, then obviously the richest people are the biggest thieves. And so that's a natural conclusion of a Marxist ideology that's been propagated through the university system for, you know, depending on who you ask, up to 60 years. No surprises here. What's funny though is, you know, we're coming to a point where the left is starting to eat itself. And so a lot of these people who are, you know, fiercely anti-Trump are realizing that there's nobody who's going to actually protect their interests other than someone to the right of them. And so, you know, you have brain dead people who are going to continue to support leftist causes because they think that we're on the verge of right-wing fascism without realizing that we're probably on the verge of left-wing fascism more than anything else. And so, sorry, we got one more. Okay, good on that. All right, it's going to be our last one. All right, we are almost done. Oops, this will be a messy cleanup. Oh well, we'll do our best. Okay, so we got I think we can do one more. Okay, one more. We'll have one piece of chicken left over. That thing might get thrown out, but we got one more for now. This kind of matches up the resources the best. So we're gonna coat this thing with egg. Throw this in, and then y'all don't even see, but we got all of these delicious breaded chicken tenders that are about to be cooked up. Okay. All right, so as we're doing this, we're going to start heating up the actually, I changed my mind. We're not gonna be, we're gonna heat up a couple of these, and we are going to put the rest of them in the air fryer. Reason being is these are actually gonna be quite fatty because they're breaded with animal fat. And so we are going to fry a couple just to show you how quickly they can be done. We're gonna test those, and then we're going to finish the rest of them in the air fryer. So, pardon me, I'm gonna go off camera. All right, we got our last chicken strip. Getting our last bit of egg. Got this last piece right here. We're going to, all right, ask questions if you got them. We got one last piece of chicken to bread before we start frying some of them. Okay, so these are actually gonna take about 20 minutes to cook in the air fryer. They're gonna go about 425 degrees on each side. So I'm gonna start this right now. About 11 minutes on each side in the air fryer, but we're also gonna be frying some of these tendies. They're gonna taste good. Okay, all right, here's what we got. Got all these chicken tenders. We're gonna turn the heat on the cast iron to medium high. We don't want it to be too high because the outside of the chicken will burn before the inside has a chance to cook. So we're going to keep this on medium high, and then we're going to put the rest of these into the air fryer. We're gonna separate them so they're not breathing on each other, okay? And then we're gonna put them in for about 11 minutes per side at 425. Give me 1 second. Let me put this in. Turn the fan on real quick. Alrighty. Okay. All right. Okay, turn this, putting this in. Hope the air fryer doesn't burn. Very well could be burning. We'll worry about that in a second. Okay, so we're gonna do a little bit of quick cleanup right now. Sorry. All right, we need to get some paper towels. All right, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna do a very fast cleanup right here. Okay, campus communism. The interesting part of campus communism is the fact that the people who support it, they all tend to be pretty rich, because they correctly identified that capitalism isn't fair. In fact, no system is fair. Right? But the reason why you see all the communists on campus, as George Orwell indirectly pointed out, isn't because they have sympathy for poor people. It's actually because they think the wrong people are rich. And so one thing that elite academics have in common is they can score well on academic tests. And so if you can score well on academic tests, it's very easy to delude yourself into believing that that is intelligence. And so this is the main folly of academics and the Marxists within the academic ranks, is they do very well on these tests, so they've convinced themselves that they are in fact smart. They are not smart, but they've convinced themselves that they're smart because they can score high on tests, and they think that a bureaucracy that is staffed by people who think like them is the only way to save the West. Conveniently, there is any test that has these academics near the bottom of the ranks is not considered to be a valid test by them. So the same PhD academics who make very little money will tell you that money is a poor measure of one's intelligence because the system is so unfair. And the only way to make the system fair is to give people like them who haven't figured out how to succeed within the system as it's presently structured, you got to give them more power. And so obviously this is a farce, but a lot of times students don't realize this because it's much easier to criticize the enemy when he's on top than the enemy when he's getting to take power and show how brazenly he's going to abuse it. Only a campus intellectual might believe that the individuals who are teaching their classes could possibly make decisions on behalf of society better than a quasi-free market could. But this is a religion for people who are predominantly atheists. And so, you know, I've been trying to convince my father, who still believes the New York Times and NPR are reasonable news sources, that that the biggest risk that Jews face is from the far right as from the far left. And he just doesn't think that, he doesn't like the far left, but he doesn't realize that the far left is very close to taking over. All right, so we're going to wash these tongs just so we don't get raw chicken on everything. Real quick wash, and I'm not supposed to turn my back to you guys, but I am. Real quick. Okay. All right. While we do this, we're going to start making the honey mustard. So the first step in making the honey mustard, we're actually going to microwave some water for about 30 minutes. Okay, so let me show you guys what we got working right here. We got good stuff on the pan. Let's switch this up. This is probably the right amount of grease, so we'll just let this chill for a little bit while we get this water. Okay, so here's the way you make honey mustard, folks. You get honey, you get mustard, you get hot water. We'll flip this back around, show you guys how to mix this in real time. Okay, so open this up. Put that honey in. Put this a little more straight up. Okay, now we're gonna mix, mix, mix. Hot water mixes with honey. Cold water does not mix with honey. That's why we want to microwave this. Also, pro tip, if you're trying to make some sweetener for your iced tea, ask for hot water. And you can mix sugar with hot water, you can mix honey with hot water. All of it will turn into basically a simple syrup. And so this is what we're doing right now with our honey. We're stirring it into the hot water. Okay, now that that is, put this to the bottom. Okay. This, sorry, straighten this bad boy out. This is what we got. That's the honey mustard. Tastes pretty good. Okay. going to turn this chicken on its side. All right, let me show you what we got working right here. Want to see the breading mix? I'll show you quickly. All right, here's the breading. These, salt, doesn't need to be kosher salt, that's just what I have today. Pepper, teaspoon of that, teaspoon of garlic powder, teaspoon of onion powder. That's what we're working with. We'll just let that chill. You see my face for the rest of this. As I'm watching all the chicken cook. All right, here's what we're working with right here. I'm going to tell you that this piece is nearly done. Not done yet. Probably got about 5 more minutes for the whole thing, I think. Okay. Actually, okay, we're going to take this out and let it sit. It's got to continue to cook on its own juice for a little bit. This piece, you can see, is still needs some love. So this piece is almost done. We can tell that that piece can sit, cook on itself for 3 more minutes, and it'll be ready to eat. This piece, we can tell, is still raw on the inside just a little bit. We're going to flip that, let both sides cook. Okay, we're going to do a quick flip. Here, see that these do for a little flip ski. Let these continue to cook for about 10.5 more minutes. Let's make sure that we don't have a fire hazard. I don't believe that we have a fire hazard in there. Hopefully not. Okay, so this piece can chill for a minute. That piece can cook a little bit longer. This piece needs like another 90 seconds, I think. We're gonna let it sit. Okay, let that one sit. So I let this one go for about a minute or so longer. I'm gonna pull it. Just like Larry Silverstein? Pull it, that's what we're gonna say. Okay, that's good. Let that one chill. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get a fork out of here. Perfectly cooked through. We're gonna dip this in the sauce. See how we did? Woo! That's so good. Thank you for tuning in. Of course, you already know by now, Chef Alex doesn't miss.